So I'm a Kiwi, I'm from New Zealand. I've only been in Australia for 2.5 years, and I moved into the eastern suburbs, live in Paddington, went to a school without many people, and only really made 2 or 3 friends in Wellington. And I had hundreds and hundreds of really close friends. Like, generally people say you should be able to count your best friends on one hand. But I feel like I really did have 4 hands worth of really close friends. And they were all completely different, and a lot of those friendships have developed since I've been in Australia, which causes me to miss home a lot, I suppose. And I missed it a lot when I got here because I didn't make friends for like a whole year, and I spent a lot of time alone. So I've learned to enjoy being alone. It's not something I would choose over hanging out with people, but it's something I'm capable of doing. So I think a lot of people are too scared to be alone with themselves and with their own thoughts. And so when they're actually forced to be alone, when everyone's out or when they've got to be in a place by themselves, for whatever reason, they'll turn to something to occupy their mind, like games or TV, which isn't always bad. I mean TV is great, depending on what you're watching, and watching films is great, and games can be great. But when you fully engulf all of your time alone in these activities, you don't really have your own thoughts. So you don't really know yourself. So if you ever came to a moment where you actually considered who you are, like as a human, it would be quite new to you, I think, for most people. I create something every day, whether it's writing or drawing or painting or music, photography, because it's how I pass time. I think that's how I live my life, like by creating. And so that's also how I choose my close friends, I suppose. They don't necessarily have to be creative, but if they can empathize or sympathize with that, then that's important to me. The staple of my inspiration, which I can easily overlook, I suppose, because it's not your obvious form of inspiration, like looking through books or listening to music. It's the idea of the ritual. So when I'm doing art, I love the ritual of having coffee, like going downstairs or going to a cafe, making or ordering a coffee and having a coffee there, and maybe something sweet, maybe a cigarette, but just the ritual of having something to ingest to break up my process in some way. I just like to have something to do, and often I'll incorporate it into the work itself. So I'll dip the base of the coffee cup in a little puddle of coffee and then stamp it onto my work in various places. And it might be a way to make it look kind of old and used, or it might be a base for a composition. like appropriating with my music. I like to make art from something natural. I like to begin with something organic, whether it's a piece of paper that's been trampled on, or that's covered in coffee, or it's a bit screwed up, or maybe it's been in the back of my book and it's got pencil rubbings on it. That kind of reveals more to me than just a blank page, because I start to see shapes, like as if you were looking at the clouds or looking at trees. I see shapes and I expand on them. So in that, it's almost like I'm appropriating my art from nature, but it's just about what I see in natural forms. I'm very in tune with my musical side. I love music and I love making music. But it's not as natural as art, because art has always been my first nature. And so in terms of creativity, I suppose music's like my second nature. So I still find it hard to come up with something from scratch without having listened to something first. Whereas with art, depending on the day, I can just create something completely new and wild, and whether it's good or bad, I can create something. And I think I'm getting there with music, and I'll get there eventually. But at the moment, I need to listen to other material to feel inspired. So I guess that inspires my kind of mental disposition. Like, I'm always quite happy, I always feel quite clear-headed and peaceful, because there's never any real drama in my life. I mean, occasionally there is, but everyone has a bit of drama. It's just nothing constant. So that's really important.